All right, thank you so much. You can go back here to those. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here today. Coming up from Colorado Springs, the drive was absolutely fabulous. I have to thank my father for driving me up here, so I didn't have to do it. That's always really cool. But as I was riding up here, I started thinking about how is a person inspired? How is a person, when do they get to a point where they move from where they are to where they want to be? And I started thinking about all of you. If you're a part of PTK, then you're already inspired. You're already beginning your journey, and you're getting to a point where you really want to make your own dreams come true. But how do you make that actually happen? Well, there's many, many different keys. And what I'd like to share with you today are a few of those keys. I'd like to begin by thinking about the culture of competition and precision. What does that really look like? What is the culture of competition? And how is it that you get it? Well, I'd like to be able to show you examples of what that actually looks like through my own story. So, we will begin. I start thinking about being motivated. Is there a difference between being motivated and being inspired? Is there? What would you say?
Yeah.
You say yes? How is it different?
There's no heart behind it, but if you're inspired to do it, you have the motivation and the heart to do it. So you're just like, all right, let's do it. Let's get up there.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And here's the funny thing. I've talked about motivation and inspiration for a very long time. I remember someone coming up to me and saying, "Are you a motivational speaker?" And I said, "No, I'm an inspirational speaker." And they said, "Well, what does that mean?" And so I tell them exactly what you said. And so then they start doing this chant like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go. And after a while, it goes away. And you start wondering, why is it gone? I keep wondering, why is it when I hear about motivation, I hear of people losing motivation, but I never hear of people losing inspiration. So I really had to dig deep and think about why that is. And I started to realize something. When you are motivated, you are reacting to an emotion. It's a feeling that's inside and it gets you charged up and you start going. However, once that feeling starts to fade, we lose motivation. If the person there that talked to you that made you feel that way is no longer there, after a while it fades. When things start getting tough, then it starts to fade. What do we have to do? We have to get to the point of being inspired. And when we're inspired, then it's something deeper than that. It's when it taps inside your spirit so deeply that under no circumstances will you stop. For nothing and no one. You continue to move forward. That is when you are now responding to the situation. And when I say responding, I'm saying that now what you're doing is you're thinking deep inside as to what steps you will take. What will the journey look like? And who is it that you need to place on your path to make it through this journey? See, when you're inspired, you don't lose that. And that is what makes all of the difference in the world. And this is what we now have to look at. I remember for me, when I first got inspired, really got inspired on this journey to get where I am now. And that took something deeper than myself. I was about 30 years old. I just came back from Japan. I was going through a divorce. I now am a single parent. My income identified me as being in poverty, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And the one thing that began my inspiration was this kid right here, my son Charles. I'd look at him with those big eyes and he'd look at me and everything I did, he would mimic. I would laugh, he would laugh. I'd tell him stop laughing, he'd say stop laughing. I said, I'm not playing with you, I'm not playing with you. And I'm like, okay. He is going to follow and mimic everything that I say. He's going to follow and mimic everything that I do. So I need to do something positive, not just for my life, but for his life too. He came to me one day when he was in second grade, and he said, "Mom, you know what? I know what I want to be when I grow up." And I looked at him and I'm thinking, please don't tell me a basketball player, you're too small. He said, "I want to be an astronaut and I want to go to the Air Force Academy." And I looked at him and I was like, how does such a small person have such large dreams? I want to help him to get there. How am I going to do that? 2 weeks later, 3 soldiers came to our house to let us know that my son's father was killed in a helicopter crash while searching for the body remains from the Vietnam War. It was painful. When I watched my son at 8.5 years old deliver the eulogy for his father's funeral, it was gut-wrenching. I started thinking about his future. I started wondering, how is it that I was going to be able to help him? And that's when I came up with what I call Action Pact. It was a pact between my son and I to take action on our education. We started the journey because I could see one day being able to hold a sign up and say, "This is for you, son." I had to get the example. I had to set that in front of him. But how was I going to do that? Again, I talk about Action Pact. What I said to my son was, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm not going to stop until I get my PhD. But that means that you have to go to school and do everything that you can so that you can get an appointment to the Air Force Academy. That means you got to stay out of trouble. You have to make right choices, just like all of us here. So the journey began, and we were traveling. Believe me, everybody was watching. Every time I went to the hairdresser, I had my books. Every time I walked in the grocery store, I had my books. Everywhere I went, I had my books, and I wanted to make a difference. But see, this is where the problem comes in. When I began, I was tested with just how inspired are you really? I walked inside the community college, and I said, "I'm here to get a PhD." They looked at me like, "Yeah, right." I said, "Oh, yeah." They said, "You got to take a test." I said, "Well, bring on the test then." I go in the testing center, I test, and they looked at me. I seen them whispering at each other like, "Oh, goodness." I said, "Well, what's wrong with them?" They said, "I'm sorry to tell you, you didn't pass the test. You didn't even test into our lowest remedial courses." See, I had a very difficult time with reading and comprehension. I had a difficult time with writing sentences grammatically correct. What was I going to do? But I was inspired. I wasn't going to give it up. I wasn't going to stop. So I kept going. I kept moving. And I took whatever tests I had to take. I went and sat with 7th and 8th graders to really be able to do this. It was degrading, yes, but it didn't matter to me. And I kept going until finally, 6 days before my son graduated from high school, I graduated with my PhD. Wow. Oh, it was incredible. I tell you what, it was awesome. But here's what was so moving. My son and so many were able to witness what only 1% of children's parents in my son's situation were able to do. He went to graduation with me so proudly, and here I am walking up the stage, getting ready to go, and I look up, and there's this big sign that said, "Congratulations, Dr. Lewis." And my son was holding it. The people from the dollar store, the hairdresser, King Soopers, the grocery store, everyone was there holding this sign. I got so emotional inside because I knew that I was first generation. I knew that it was something that was going to be very difficult to do, but I achieved it. And I was able to move forward with it. And wow, I was so excited. I walked up the stage crying. I walked across the stage crying. I walked down the stage crying. And then the cameraman was like, "Would you like your photos?" And I looked at him like, "No, don't ever cry ugly." I was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it." So finally, I get to a point where I'm going to my son's graduation. When I went to my son's graduation, it was exciting. Now, my son told me, he said, Mom, now I'm going to have you go, but I really don't want you to act crazy. Do I look at my hair, do I look like the type of person that would act crazy? I just wouldn't. I said, oh, I'm going to be all right. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the other parents, and they just seemed to be so conservative. They were clapping. It looked like 3 fingers. Good job, Johnny. Oh, Mary, wonderful job. I was like, shoot, wait till they get Charles up there. My son was like, oh, here we go. My sister sitting beside me, she's like, girl, keep it down. I said, I'm all right. All of a sudden, it's Charles's turn, and the head of the school walks up, and he's looking at me. He's like, oh, we getting ready to have a good time in here. He leans into the mic. He's like, Charles Edward Lewis III. I was like, oh, we talking about my baby in here. People were like, oh, my goodness, I can't believe she's acting this way. I said, I haven't even begun yet. My son looked at me and he was like, oh, it's on now. He got that stroll, you know, that Obama stroll, you know, he got the walking on sideways looking. He throws me a little salute. I'm losing my mind. And all of a sudden they look, and the principal said, Charles has been accepted to the Air Force Academy, West Point, Navy Academy, Purdue, Embry-Riddle. They named 8 prestigious colleges that my son was accepted to. And I knew he was getting there because of the example, and because I could model it for him, because I gave him resources, that every door of opportunity was bust wide open for him, that I wasn't going to care about the barriers that were in the way, because I was going to kick them down and we were going to go through these doors, just as you will kick down any door to get where it is that you want to go. This is what it's about. I wanted to see the day. I wanted to see the day that I could watch my son at the Air Force Academy. And it happened. Today, my son is at the academy. And I am Dr. Lewis, ready to serve the students in our community to make a difference. This is what it's about. This is how we rotate it around. This is how we put meaning to it. I asked my son, I said, what is it that's going to inspire you to keep going? Because when you go into the academy, it's not easy. Just like when you come to school, it is not easy. What is inspiring you to keep going? He said, I'll tell you what's going to inspire me. It is my father. I want to be able to complete my first year. And I want to be able to complete my last year. And I want to go to Arlington Cemetery, and I want to be able to salute my father with pride. And he did. He was able to salute his father. And I was so proud of him. Let me say this. 2014, May 28th, 9 a.m., all of you will hear me. It has no comparison to high school graduation, because my son will be graduating from the Air Force Academy, and it will be a joyful noise. It will be a joyful noise. My story is just an example of what it actually takes. But what is the combination? What is it that's going to really make the difference, and how can you utilize that information in your own story? It's the combination of competition and precision. Let me define the competition first. The competition is a healthy way for you to compete against yourself, a healthy way. I always say when you reach the top of the mountain, it only makes it easier to see the next summit. Always compete with yourself. Always try to get better. After I finished my PhD, I decided, you know what, now let me see if I can't do something with my body. Let me go do a bodybuilding competition out of nowhere. It didn't even make sense. And it was hard. When I got on that stage, all I thought about was you better not take my trophy or I'm going to eat your arm off, because I was hungry that day. And they called first place, and I got it. What's going to be my next one? What's going to be my next competition? My next competition is to finish my book, Raising a Prince on Food Stamps, and having it ready when he graduates. What is your next competition? How will you compete against yourself? But you also have to have the precision, defining yourself and redefining yourself at all points. Looking at it and saying the realization that what got you here won't get you there. So you've got to do something different. You've got to do something better. Focus and efficiently manage your time and goals. You want to be able to be aware, ready, and having a plan. Always having a plan. Even when I come to speak, one of the things that I always do is check myself. What am I wearing? What am I looking like? How's my hair? Practice my intonations, my rise and fall on my conversation. Always redefining myself. When you do this, you can change that. You have to also be able to reach to others. You want to be able to reach to those who can really help you to get where you are. Share with one another. I always say you can't graduate unless you collaborate. You collaborate with each other because, see, there's things that you have, different perspectives, different values, different beliefs, different knowledge, and different skills that you can share with someone else. And what you want to do is exchange that in the exchange zone. Exchange that information. Optimize your learning. It reminded me of the 2012 Olympics. I remember it was the women's 4x100. And in that 4x100, they had 4 women getting ready to run. And something that the United States does that no other country does is they put their team together, they assemble it only 3 weeks prior to running the race. Now, when these women get together, they all think that they're legends in their own right. We are the best of the best. But they have to figure out who's going to run what leg of the race, because not everybody can run the same part. So they have to optimize it in the exchange zone. They have to be able to say, you know what, you're really good coming out the blocks. And we can utilize your skills right there. And you're really good on the curves. The curves are hard, but you can do it. But you have to remember there's other teams that's doing the same thing. And when they are passing that baton, that's where the difference is made. How well can you do that? As a result, they had it so down packed to be able to pass on their skill to the next person. They were able to utilize their skills in the position that they best fit so well that they broke the world record. Let's see how it really looked. I don't know how to turn it up. As you can see, they're taking off and they're on the curve. The first one starts running. Watch the exchange zone. Without even looking back, she's grabbing onto that baton.
Heading over to the end of the night, there was still a chance for Jamaica to make a change. But by the time she passed the baton to Carmelita Jebba, the gold medal was virtually decided. Jebba charged down the straight, far enough ahead to point at the clock before crossing the line, and with good reason. The USA had just broken the second oldest world record in all of athletics, and an Olympic record dating back 32 years. The time of 40.82 seconds was almost 0.6 of a second ahead of Jamaica, who had a national record to finish second, with Ukraine doing likewise to take the bronze. On this night, though, the limelight was reserved for the USA, but the fastest women's relay ever run. So a gold medal and a world record to the USA, with Tiana Madison, Alison Felix, Bianca Knight and Carmelita Jeppa climbing to the top step of the podium. Jamaica took the silver to cap off a brilliant women's sprint campaign, with Ukraine taking the bronze.
These women made it look so easy. They just glided through. When they were passing the baton, they didn't have to look back and check to see if the other person's got them. They already knew it. That's through building those relationships. It's about really collaborating and saying, I got you because I know my part. And I'm going to be dependent upon your part. And passing that baton to one another is most important. That's what you want to do. You want to pass on the baton of information and knowledge and skill to one another. Don't try to do it by yourself. But even though it looked easy, it's oftentimes challenging. Why is this a challenge? Why is it that so often we face things and we just can't seem to keep going? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One of them is fear. I found this quote and it says, "Fear is the dark room where negatives are developed." Fear is the dark room where negatives are developed. Now, I got that out of a fortune cookie, but it was great. It was great. But there's the fear of success. Some people are afraid to succeed because once they get there, they don't know what it looks like. So often we don't succeed. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like, smell like? We don't know. So we get afraid. It's better to stay where we're familiar. Then there's the success threat. That's when others are threatened by your success. And they'll give you all the reasons why you shouldn't succeed. Wow. Then we have the problem with that there's no clear understanding of the impact of choice. See, you can choose not to do something. And you think that it's only impacting your life, but it's doing more than that. It's impacting the lives of others who are watching you, the others that need you. And this is concerning. And then there's also the point that there's no future story. My future story was my son. What is your future story? And when you have it, what is the meaning behind it? The meaning behind my future story, because my future story was to pass on the baton to my son, the baton of education. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's now going to take it. But what does that really mean? What it meant for me to get to that level was that it was going to change the face of education in my family's history, that we no longer could say that we are first generation. What will it mean for you to achieve? What does it mean to be a part of PTK because you didn't have to? What does it really mean? Don't think about it in terms of what you will receive. Think of it in terms of what you will give. What is the true meaning of that? Remember that in order to really make this accomplishable, then you want to use the yin and the yang of motivation and inspiration. Don't just react, respond to the situation. And in order for you to respond to the situation, and in order for you to be successful, you've got to know what the hidden rules and behaviors are to actually succeed. So what are they? Well, there's many. But could I name a few? Well, there was this interesting thing I thought about when I thought about, the hidden rules. It reminded me of back in the 80s. In the 80s, they had these pictures. They were called stereograms. You could stare at these pictures, and if you look long enough, if you cross-eyed your eyes a little bit, after a while, then fish or something would start coming out of the picture, and you're like, wow, there it is. Sometimes you would look and you would stare and you'd turn your head and you'd look upside down, and no matter what you did, you couldn't see it. Until someone said, hey, let me show it to you. Look right there. No, squint your eyes a little bit. Can you see it? Can you see it? And then boom, here it is. It reminded me of this photo. What do you see? What is that? Tiger. What else do you see? Instead of tiger in the grass, a tiger with stripes. Oh, yeah. The thing of it is we look and we stare and we're trying to see, and sometimes we just don't see it. Does anybody see anything else in that picture? You see something. What'd you say? A woman's face, and someone's going, where? And then somebody else is going, oh, yeah. If you see it, you should be sharing it with somebody else. Tell them. Look at here. The head, the eyes, the nose, the lips, the chin. Ah! If we could only see that when we're going to college, if we could only see that this is what happens. Wow. Sometimes we want it revealed to us. We need those hidden rules and behaviors revealed to us. And that's what we're doing here today. Getting the rules and the behaviors actually revealed to us. So let's look at a couple of these. You want to look at the reward of the new possibilities. You want to look at what is it that it's going to take and what are some of these secrets to success. Collaborate to graduate, as I said before. You want to reach in all directions. Don't just reach to your neighbor. Don't just reach to the people who you know or the people who are in your same major or in the same club or look like you. Reach to the ones that you would least expect to know anything. And I guarantee you they'll tell you something amazing. Reach to all directions. And when you do, then what you'll do is build yourself a resource of people that will help you to get where you want to go and achieve your dreams. Learn how to learn. Don't just depend on the books. Don't just depend on your teachers. Dig deeper, dig further. Seek it out for yourself. There's information everywhere. I know that I have had people to tell me all the time, man, if you don't know, we've got the World Wide Web, the World Wide Web. There's information everywhere. That's something that we look to. Ask questions and seek help. Always ask questions. I know that I was reading a book by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and he used to ask questions all the time. That, in his day, when he was younger, he wasn't allowed to read and write. He wasn't allowed. But he would ask questions. Or at least he would play little tricks. He used to tell the master's son, I bet you don't know how to spell cat. He says, yes, I do. He then spell it then. And he'd spell it. And he would remember for himself. Be open to different perspectives. Your perspective is not the only answer. It's not the only way. If you only look at your perspective, you're only limited to how far your perspectives can actually take you. And keep the drive. You want to keep moving. You don't want to stop under no circumstances. Remember this. Impossible is nothing. Impossible is nothing. There are times in our lives that we've reached what we thought was impossible. And once we reached it, it became cake. Let's move on to the next thing. Been there, done that. Let's keep going. In order to do the impossible, first, you must be disciplined. John Hope Franklin says, many have the ability to receive several degrees, but few have the discipline to receive one. Be authentic. Don't lose yourself. Just know when you need to bring yourself out. I'm Dr. Lewis. At home, I'm Regina. And to my son, I'm Mom. And to my friends, well, they call me whatever they want to call me. But I'm still real. Some people thought, oh, she's Dr. Lewis now, we could just forget it. Oh, no, I still know how to laugh and have a great time. But I also know when I have to turn it off and get serious. Have a success entourage. A success entourage. Those are those people who says, you can do it. We're going to help you to get it. And you have the ability. They see in you what you don't see in yourself. Let your haters be your motivators. Hate me. Because the more you hate me, the more motivated I'm going to be. And I'll see you on the other side. How you doing? Look beyond your current state. Don't look at your situation where you are now. Look beyond that. And that's what you strive to do. Don't look at right here, right now. Because all you can do is stay right here, right now. Stay focused on the results. Whenever you feel like you're losing it, keep thinking about the results. Believe me, when I had to eat oatmeal with no sugar, no raisins in my cereal, and I had to boil my chicken, and I'm looking over as my family members are enjoying a wonderful meal, I had to stay focused on the result. Otherwise, I would have threw it up in the air and went and had some apple crisp and vanilla bean ice cream. Remember, your goal is not an option. It's not an option. You don't have the option to lose motivation. Get help. Get help from others to help you to stay focused on the results. Find those that you would consider part of your success entourage. And then what you want to do is find that very special one or two people that become part of your brain trust. When you have a brain trust, then those are those individuals that you trust with your thinking. Because sometimes we get to thinking in places that we don't need to, and they bring us back to reality. Your success entourage becomes your bridging capital. They will bridge you from where you are to where you need to be. Let's take PTK. This is bridging capital. PTK is going to open doors that otherwise you couldn't get through. They're going to bridge you from where you are to the next step of where you want to be. Take full advantage of that. Know that you're a scholar. When I talk to my students, I call them scholars. Good morning, scholar. And then the guy will say, no, my name is Mike. No, you didn't get it. Scholar, according to Dr. Donna Ford, is knowing that you are capable and able to learn, and that you're competent to learn. You are a scholar. You can limit yourself and you can put barriers up without even knowing it. Subconsciously, you can start to believe that you can't because your group has always been identified as one that usually cannot succeed in this area. When taking tests in the engineering department, women typically don't do well on the test, so they don't. But when Dr. Claude Steele did a test on it, he said, this new test has equaled the playing field. You now can succeed and do as well, if not better, than your male counterpart. When they took the test, they surpassed the male counterparts and then later found out it was the exact same test. Oh yeah. Believe that you can do this. Believe it because you can. Seek evidence that you're succeeding and that you're successfully moving in the right direction. If you go into a classroom and you get a C on a paper or you get a B on a paper and you're saying, I wanted an A, I'm upset, then all you're focusing on is evidence that you've done something wrong. But what you want to do is look within that paper and find out what helped you to get that C, what helped you to get that B. And if you don't know, ask your instructor. Seek the areas in which is helping you to succeed so you can capitalize on that very thing. You have to understand that in all that I've said, there is the power of choice. Choice is probably the most powerful tool that we possess. Remember this, if you choose, then you've chosen. If you choose, then you've chosen, no matter what it is. What choices are you going to make? What choices are you going to make to succeed, to move forward? And guess what? You can't get there without the help of others. Even if you think you're getting there by yourself, someone had to accept you in. Someone had to open that door for you. I make no bones about it. I stand on the shoulders of others. You do too. And how will you build your shoulders so others can stand on your shoulders? Will you be there? When they look like they can't, can you swoop them up and lift them up? Can you keep them going? It made me think of another track video that I saw, really, really moving. This young man was practicing for the Olympics, and you know, when you get ready to go to the Olympics, you really do put in a lot of times, 4 years of your time, for this one day to either make it or not. This young man, he starts running the race. And as he's running, then suddenly something happens to the back of his leg. And the pain shoots in, and he can no longer keep running as fast as he was. But he was determined to finish this race because he was inspired. He had to do it because he worked so hard, and he knew thousands of people were watching him. As a matter of fact, 65,000 people. So he started to hobble along. But there was a man who was able and capable to help him, just as you're able and capable to help someone else to get where you are right now. And there's someone capable and able to help you get where they are. And this man came out on the field and he put the guy's arm around him and he helped him. When he got close to the finish line, the young man, in all of his pain, all of his sorrow, said, I must do this alone. Because we don't want to carry somebody all the way to the finish line. We've got to let go at some point. And when he let go, man, he finished the race. And he received a standing ovation. You know, when you are trying to get somewhere, or someone else is trying to get somewhere, it's like running a race. And life will grab you and almost stop you in your tracks. It's left up to you to be determined. It's left up to you to make sure that you're equipped with being inspired, because when you are inspired, motivation is no longer an option. Seek it now, and it'll make all the difference in the world. I'm Dr. Lewis, and you will hear me May 2014. Thank you.